All right, so today we're going to do a deep dive into some pretty interesting stuff happening in Canadian finance right now.
Sounds good.
And I got to say, looking over the articles you sent, things are getting kind of wobbly for the loonie, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, for sure.
It's like, one of those playground seesaws. The loonie's down on one end, and on the other end, up go bond yields.
Exactly. It is a bit of a seesaw dynamic.
So
Hmm.
for our listeners who maybe haven't spent their day glued to the financial news, unlike some of us, let's break it down a bit. What exactly are we talking about when we say loonie and bond yields?
Absolutely. So the loonie is basically just a fun nickname for the Canadian dollar.
Right, like the bird.
Exactly. And a yield, well, think of it this way. You lend money to, say, the government or a company by buying a bond, right? The yield is basically like the interest you earn on that loan.
Okay, makes sense. So enough of the basics. Let's dive into these articles about the loonie. Seems like it took a bit of a tumble today, right?
Yeah, that's right. The loonie weakened against the US dollar by about 0.3%, which might not seem like a lot,
Right.
but it brings the exchange rate to 1.4329 Canadian dollars for every US dollar,
Right.
which, it's part of a broader trend we've been watching.
Currencies fluctuate all the time, right? It's
Yep.
kind of like a constant dance between different economies.
Exactly.
But in this particular dance, what's making the loonie stumble? What's stepping on its toes?
Well, there are a few potential partners in this dance, so to speak.
Okay.
One of them is the rise in yields on Canadian government 10-year bonds, which actually jumped by 7.3 basis points today.
Whoa, hold on. Basis points. Every
Yeah.
time I hear basis points, I picture these tiny little accountants like scurrying around the stock market, moving decimal places around.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it's a funny image.
But seriously, what does a jump in basis points mean for, say, someone who wants to buy a house? Does this impact them?
It does, actually. So a basis point is just a fancy way of saying 1100th of a percent. So when bond yields increase, like they did today, borrowing money gets a little bit more expensive.
Hmm.
And that includes mortgages. So yeah, it makes buying a house just a tad pricier.
Gotcha. So it's all connected. I'm starting to see the bigger picture here. So the loonie's down, bond yields are up. Is this like a coincidence, or is there actually a relationship between the two?
Oh, there's definitely a relationship there. Imagine like two playgrounds.
Okay.
One's Canada and the other's the US. Higher bond yields in the US. They're like shiny new swings on the American playground, right?
I like where you're going with this.
So investors, they see those shiny new swings. They want to play there.
Makes sense.
So they sell off their Canadian toys, their Canadian stocks and bonds, to go buy those American swings.
And that selling rush.
Exactly. That can weaken the loonie.
And when the loonie weakens, that means, help me connect the dots here.
Well, it means our Canadian dollars don't buy as much when we're shopping in the US. Like those shiny new swings suddenly seem a bit pricier. So imported goods can get more expensive. But on the flip side, our Canadian stuff becomes a better deal for folks in other countries.
Like a two-way street.
Exactly.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, the articles also mentioned oil prices, and I know Canada's a big oil exporter, right?
Yeah.
So where does oil fit into this whole financial dance?
Right. You hit the nail on the head. When oil prices drop, like they did today, U.S. crude futures went down to $72.51 per barrel. By the way, it often drags the loonie down with it.
So it's like if Canada's oil store isn't making as many loonie dollars,
Yeah, think of it that way.
it can weaken the value of the loonie itself.
Exactly. And that's just one more factor in this whole intricate global dance.
Fascinating. It's like those choose-your-own-adventure books, right?
Aha! How so?
Well, if the price of oil goes up, maybe we flip to page 47 and see the loonie doing a victory dance.
Right.
But then, bam, interest rates spike, and it's off to page 92, where things get way more unpredictable.
Yeah, you got it. It's all connected in this complex web.
So today we learned that the loonie's a bit wobbly, probably because bond yields are climbing and oil prices are slipping.
That's a good summary.
But this isn't just a Canadian story, is it? I mean, these financial forces are at play everywhere.
You're absolutely right. And understanding how these things work, the currencies, the bond yields, it can help you decode the financial news no matter where you live.
That's a fantastic takeaway. Thanks for guiding us through this deep dive. It's definitely given me a fresh perspective on all those financial headlines.
You're very welcome.
And to all our listeners out there, keep an eye on your own country's currency and bond markets. They can tell you a lot about where things might be headed.
Absolutely.
They're like a window into the future, or maybe a crystal ball if you're feeling a little more mystical.
Uh-huh. I like that.
Either way, it's a fascinating world out there. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time for another deep dive.
See you then.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.